The quote-unquote riots that were reported never happened.
A few moments later.
We're going to continue to watch this as we bring into the conversation ICE Deputy Director Madison Sheehan. Madison, let me just get your take on the images we're seeing on the screen right now. What do you say to all of this?
That report, and take a look at this video right here. It appears a protester fired some kind of gun at federal agents. This happened this afternoon. It was a really chaotic scene at the time. A lot of smoke was being launched at the protesters. And again, it appears a protester fired back with that weapon. It looks like he fired at least a couple of times. We have not heard about any agents being hurt.
So for what must be about the 20th time by now, we are once again coming on this channel and bringing you the coverage of more anti-ICE riots currently breaking out in the city of Los Angeles, and that should not be all that surprising considering this is just what they do now, right? I think LA is a city that is synonymous with burning tires and political violence, and I think it's worth noting that there is a significant portion of these Democrat activists and protesters who are simply mentally deranged individuals. And keep in mind, when I say that, I'm not using it as a form of political speech. No, I mean from a genuine psychological perspective, they have issues going on upstairs, and that translates to them being, first of all, highly delusional to believe the things they do, but then secondly, to act upon those impulses violently. Not very good things going on there. But it is worth noting here, right, that in the context of these protests, we're not talking about an issue that just spawned up organically. This is specifically being stirred up by the vile anti-ICE rhetoric coming from Democrat politicians and the mainstream media. And the narrative here that I think is most important, that needs to be called out, is the way in which there's a direct connection between the increasing acts of violence here, which are, by the way, getting highly out of control. We're not talking about them just doing a little bit of rioting, a little bit of looting, as bad as that is. No, but it's getting to the point of real world, very bad stuff that we'll discuss here in a second. But guys, this comes just days after we covered it over the weekend, by the way, go watch our video on it, out of Texas, where you saw two different cases of actual armed assassination attempts with firearms, not with sticks or something, with firearms against ICE and Border Patrol officials in the state of Texas. Which is to say what? This issue is now like, if it wasn't real before, it is real now. Talking about the threats against ICE officers' life, the danger that they're in, and again, this being a byproduct of the crazy rhetoric being thrown around by Democrats. And let me ask you this week, right? After you saw what happened in that state over the 4th of July weekend, have you seen a single Democrat politician, besides John Fetterman, by the way, he did do it, come out and say to any extent, hey, in response to the fact that ICE officers are literally getting shot at, maybe we should tone down the temperature, or maybe we should at least say we condemn the violence? No, absolutely not. They're completely silent about what happened, and they're continuing to double down on many of the ideas they were pushing, such as, for instance, that ICE should be forced to show their faces and show their identity to the world. They're, of course, celebrating the fact that there's a new app that basically allows people to track ICE in real time. I wonder what nefarious purposes that could be used for. And that is why we ought to kind of drive the point home here today, that there's a direct connection between the violence you're seeing in the streets and these politicians being totally dismissive of everything in a quite vile and disgusting way. Whether that's California Senator Alex Padilla, the guy who charged at a woman and got shocked he got handcuffed for it, or LA Mayor Karen Bass. This is vile, this is disgusting, but we'll get into it. First though, folks, as usual, do us a big favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe if you are new. Subscribing here, guys, is not only the best way to support our videos, but it also ensures that you stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, so let's of course start here by showing you, this is not an isolated case where they just looted a 7-Eleven or something, right? It is officially highly dangerous, not just to property, but to people. And a repeat here of what you saw in Texas. We obviously cannot play this video for the purposes of this platform, but you did see here today, according to, as reported by ABC Eyewitness News, local station there, they were recording this out of their chopper. You have the rioters, you see tear gas flying, all this stuff, blocking the freeway, trying to instigate against ICE. You saw here this one so-called protester, aka rioter, literally pull out what appears to be a handgun, and yes, he was just shooting it at the ICE officers, okay? Again, just describing it to you verbally because obviously we cannot play it because it is a pretty gruesome act of violence to say the least. And again, this comes just after we saw this happen already in Texas. A repeated trend you're seeing here. And by the way, what is to be expected when one political party in this country is encouraging and celebrating the doxing and harassing of ICE officers? It's disgusting. But with that in mind, okay, so understanding this is the type of stuff that's going on. I'm not, I believe in free speech, right? I'm not going to go out here and say that just because a Democrat is opposed to ICE or deportations or what they're doing, that inherently means they're condoning the violence against ICE. However, it is worth noting here that when you look at the actions this week, this week, by the way, after you already saw ICE officers with armed assassination attempts against them in Texas over the weekend, the day after, as you can see here, yes, one day after, 10 people were charged for plotting to ambush ICE agents and take their lives. California Senator Alex Padilla was doing what? He was focusing all of his political energy on continuing this push here to make it illegal for ICE officers to wear masks to cover their face. Now, just a casual reminder here. The Trump administration has repeatedly stated the reason why ICE has to cover their face is because insane lunatics like what you just saw on your screen earlier are trying to target them and potentially do bad things to them. They're trying to identify them, harass their families. And you might look at it and say, oh, that's just fear-mongering by the Trump administration. That's just exaggeration. But I think after what you saw today, what you saw this weekend, no. That cannot be denied anymore. This is a real-world threat. Real things are happening, and it is here completely and utterly justified. If it wasn't before, it absolutely is now for ICE to be covering their face. But still, nonetheless, no condemnation of Alex Padilla for the fact that people are, doing what they're doing. But here's what he had to say this week about ICE.
One of the things that we're trying to tackle with this enforcement actions gone wild is so many federal agents without any clear marks on their uniform. Right? You don't know what department or agency they represent. They're allowed to cover up, mask themselves. And so there's no way to identify them as a federal agent for the sake of the fear and concern in community and for the safety of the officers themselves, because when you're getting attacked, you think you're being kidnapped and you don't know who it is that may be attacking you. A natural instinct to urge is to fight back, and so we want to present this, it's a bill that I just introduced along with Senator Booker from New Jersey to require the same type of no mask and identification markings on a uniform that local law enforcement in California has had for a long time and other federal departments and agencies require as well.
Disgusting, just utterly disgusting. And again, completely ignoring the fact that in the beginning of the Trump administration, they were showing their faces. The reason the mask policy came into being, as has been repeatedly stated here, is because exactly like the lunatics who are voting for you in your elections repeatedly time after time, we're doing the type of stuff that is now escalating into actual assassination attempts. And Alex Padilla, of course, has nothing to say. It is repulsive, okay? Repulsive. With that said, we, of course, today also have the reaction from LA Mayor Karen Bass, and this is indeed from today. As you see, by the way, unrest happening all over the city. LA Mayor Karen Bass is denying that the city has faced unrest, unlawful assemblies, riots, and attacks on federal employees and property. She also is claiming here to be unaware of the armed attacks against ICE and law enforcement in Texas, right? Basically, nothing is, look at her smile, by the way, the typical Karen Bass smile. Nothing is happening, everything is fine, and therefore my rhetoric against these people is justified. Check it out.
Mayor Bass, this is kind of more of a broader national question. Reports indicate that ICE agents and police officers in Texas have been targeted in ambushes, including in Alvarado, where assailants in tactical gear allegedly lured officers with fireworks before opening fire. Given your strong opposition to federal immigration enforcement actions in Los Angeles, how would you address similar escalations of violence against law enforcement in Texas? And what steps would you propose to prevent such unrest from spreading to Los Angeles while balancing community safety in your sanctuary city policies?
Well, let me just say that the quote-unquote riots that were reported never happened. We did have a couple of incidences of vandalism and looting, but the way it was portrayed nationally was like the whole city was up in flames. The comparison to 1992, which was completely 100% inappropriate. And I think the example that you use, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. It was from some other state.
Yes, Texas.
Yeah,
11.
I have no idea what happened in Texas. What I do know is what happened in Los Angeles.
11
What has
people
been
were
happening in Los Angeles has been completely.
Mayor, 11 people were arrested for trying to attack ICE agents and federal law enforcement. So I was just trying to get your perspective on how you're going to contain the situation here in Los Angeles and the unrest.
I can't respond to Texas.
Okay. Thank you.
So notice, first of all, her dismissive look when he brings it up like, that can't be real. Surely not. And by the way, there weren't really riots going on, including today, by the way. Okay. Well, Mayor Karen Bass, we now have an incident, again, as is reported here by the local news, ABC 7 LA, go look at them if you don't believe me, where you are now having, okay, armed people, much like Texas, in your state doing the exact same thing. And what does she tell us? Everything is under control. It's all fine. No major issues. The riots? What riots? I never saw any riots. Unbelievable, right? But it should not be all that surprising. Now, with that said, I think it is worth noting here at the same time, while the Democrats of California and Los Angeles are so angry about ICE, and they're quite, whether it's directly or indirectly, you can make the argument there, but in a way, it's pretty undeniable they're inciting violence against ICE officials here. It's worth noting the actual impacts that the ICE operations are having on the city of Los Angeles, because this is a repeated trend you keep seeing from a lot of different people. People have personally told me this, right? People back home, because I'm originally from the area. I see it all over social media, where there is massive reports of how the traffic has gotten significantly lighter in the state because of the deportation raids. And why is that? It's not because necessarily they've all been deported. It's also because a lot of illegal aliens are so scared of ICE, they're staying off the roads. They are not going to work. Aldo here reports how he basically managed to get from North Hollywood to past Long Beach all the way there in 60 minutes, which for LA standards is basically impossible. And it really begs the question, there's varying reports, there's still traffic, obviously, but the fact that it's gone significantly lighter, what is, of course, going on there? And the question I keep on posing in every video about LA is that when you hear these reports, you really have to be begging the genuine question of, first of all, how much of the population of LA is actually illegal? Because obviously, I think it's a reasonable assumption. People have long guessed, yeah, LA is full of a lot of illegals. I don't think anyone denies that. But if you're seeing situations where the traffic goes from what it's been the past several years to like half empty, what does that suggest? It suggests at least like 30 to 40% of the actual population of LA, as high as that, right? Because you might think, 10%, maybe 15%. I think, frankly, it could be as high as 30 or 40 based on the effect you're seeing here, right? You're seeing massive reports of like entire businesses closing down. Nobody's outside of Home Depot anymore. You got this situation with the traffic. And that, of course, begs a very important point here. It exposes a lot, right? It exposes a lot about the so-called prosperity of, it's not just an issue of like, oh, there's more illegals than we think. I think there's a greater point here, especially in context to LA, in context to California, which is that if you have the sort of red state, blue state debate with Democrats, with liberals a lot, a big point they'll bring up is the so-called California economy, right? Oh, you hate California so much, you claim we're so bad, but look, we're the largest GDP, we're the strongest economy in all of America. As they so often cite, if California was its own independent country, we'd have like the 5th largest GDP in the world. So what are you talking about? The red states are poor. And it's like, okay, first of all, the growth of California happened when it was a red state. It is rapidly declining. People are leaving, emigrating out of it en masse ever since that has changed, number one. But even on that front, right? Okay. But if you're having this situation, whereas Karen Bass said in her own eyes, it is devastating. The local economy is being basically shut down because of the enforcement against the illegal immigration. Does that not prove that the so-called prosperity of California that people keep saying exists, but nobody actually feels who lives there because everyone's trying to freaking leave, is fake? It's a lie, right? You basically have a fake economy that's being propped up by slave labor and indentured servitude, which is exactly what the epidemic of hiring illegal aliens is all about, right? The people say, oh, they just come here, they're trying to make a better life for themselves. That might be true from their perspective, but understand, from an economic perspective, the reason businesses hire illegal aliens is for precisely this reason. And much like the argument could be made about the South in the 1800s, does this not further here, guys, prove that the so-called lie of this economy is fake? Okay, it's being propped up basically by slave labor. So anyways, just the point I wanted to make on that front. But, you know, you're seeing this massive improvement, okay, to the quality of life for the people who actually rightfully and legally live here out of Los Angeles. And in other news, right? Also worth noting here, I think it's important to point out the type of people who are being targeted by the ICE raids to show you why these are so important, and a big portion of what this is about, besides the fact that your real estate's going to go down, your traffic is going to go down, your livability of your areas is going to be incredible, because frankly, I think it's an undeniable fact, many areas of this country have become overcrowded in the last 4 years, especially since COVID.
It crowds the schools, it crowds the apartments, it crowds the hospitals, and it crowds the streets. I don't know if you guys seen this. People are showing what Google Maps looks like in LA now that all the illegals are hiding from ICE. There's no traffic on the freeway. You can go on the 405 and you go 65 miles an hour. Trump has literally reduced traffic in Los Angeles, and Democrats are complaining.
Well, I didn't see that one coming, Harold.
But on top of that, I think there's a further point to be had, because just today, as you know, put the side by side here of what this is about, right? As you have crazy rioters trying to, basically do, what, against ICE officers in LA, this comes on the same day that ICE has just arrested an MS-13 kingpin who was wanted for 5 different murders. And take a listen here to this detail. He was literally on El Salvador's most wanted list, but Biden still voluntarily released him into our country. Oh, that's a conspiracy. No, that surely can't happen, right? I'm sure was he a Maryland father, Democrats? Will Democrats now be going out and painting this guy as a Maryland father who's about to be wrongfully deported? Because they seem to have that pattern with MS-13 gang members. I don't know, just saying, right? Are you going to go have a margarita with him? Huh, Chris Van Hollen? Huh? What are you going to do? This issue infuriates me because it's so important. But anyways, take a listen.
Suspect's name, Melvin Varela Perez. He's been wanted for 5 murders and is considered a high-ranking member of the gang. But even though he's been on El Salvador's 100 most wanted list since 2016, he crossed the border and was released into the U.S. under the Biden administration.
Perez was arrested alongside an associate named Rene Escobar Ochoa, who had a red notice from Interpol out on him when he came across the border. The Department of Homeland Security reacting in a statement saying, quote, the Biden administration allowed 2 ringleaders of MS-13, one of the most violent gangs in the world, come straight into our country. One of these depraved aliens is on El Salvador's 100 most wanted fugitives list and is wanted for 5 counts of murder. The other has an Interpol notice for drug trafficking. These are the kinds of scumbags sanctuary politicians are protecting and letting walk free on America's streets.
Yeah, so now with all of that in mind, with everything we showed you, because this is currently a ongoing situation and we'll see where it all ends up, I do want to play for you. It's kind of a side-by-side here, right? On one hand, you have from Fox News here, the riots going on, and then Border Patrol talking about it, specifically in response. So here you go. Take a listen. We'll play for you. This is the development currently going on in LA, juxtaposed with all the images we showed you earlier of the politicians egging it on, and of course, ICE actually making this country better. So check it out.
This as we bring into the conversation ICE Deputy Director Madison Sheehan. Madison, let me just get your take on the images we're seeing on the screen right now. What do you say to all of this?
Well, look, I think it's unacceptable that people are out treating law enforcement this way, treating the National Guard this way. You know, these men and women protect the United States of America every single day, and they're just not being treated with the respect that they deserve for putting their lives on the line to protect the American people from the open border policies that the Biden administration had for so long, forcing the men and women of ICE to go into these communities, get the worst of the worst out of the community. And it's just completely disrespectful what you're seeing done to these men and women.
Does this image on your screen right here not vindicate the need for more ICE raids? Right? I don't think they understand. They're largely vindicating the point here of why immigration enforcement is so important, and especially doing it while waving foreign flags while claiming to be a part of the United States. So
when we talk about the worst of the worst, Secretary Homan has released a list of some of the people who have been captured in this operation in Los Angeles. Can you, I think you're familiar with some of the names and some of the charges that these people are facing. Can you tell us about them?
Absolutely. President Trump and Secretary Noem have set a mission for ICE to get the worst of the worst out of these communities, whether it's child rapists, human traffickers, murderers, the type of people you do not want in your community. And we have been working in LA and the surrounding areas to get these people out of the community, to keep the American people safe. President Trump had a mandate from the American people to deliver on this promise, to secure the border and allow enforcement to happen in the interior. And that's what the men and women of ICE have put their lives on the line to do every single day. And they're being attacked by the public for these actions. And it's just unacceptable what we're seeing here.
I'm going to read some of the names of people who've been arrested this week. Quang Chan Phan, a 49-year-old illegal alien from Vietnam, who...
A California father, correction there. I'm sure that's how they're going to frame it, right? California father.
Whose record includes a conviction for second-degree murder. He'd been sentenced to 15 years to life. Rolando
California father.
Veneracion Enriquez, who has a criminal history of burglary and sexual assault and assault with intent to commit rape.
Chris Van Hollen will be having a margarita with that individual very soon.
These are the kinds of people who have been arrested, and yet there are folks in the street there trying to suggest, I guess, that ICE should not be detaining them.
And there's also politicians saying the same thing, right? The politicians are melting down over any ICE raid that takes place in LA, including those that are targeting people like this, right? Actually, in the vast majority of cases, ICE usually shows up because they're responding to some type of warrant. And what do the Democrats say, right? They shouldn't be coy about it. I don't think we should, downplay the fact this is the party that had the margaritas with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This is all what they're about. They're about defending the criminals and releasing them into our communities, into our country, and onto our streets. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at what Joe Biden did with, directly, as we just covered, releasing a mass murderer from El Salvador into this country. And, that makes perfect immigration. That's diversity, right? Don't you want a more diverse community with people like that? Unbelievable.
It's bonkers.
It is. It's absolutely crazy. This is the narrative that the Democrats continue to push, that the men and women of ICE are not protecting the American people, and that's just completely false. They are out working to get the worst of the worst out of these communities, so that way they do not continue to go into American communities and wreak havoc on the American people. We are working every single day to stop this invasion from happening, stop the rhetoric that has continued to put officers in harm's way. Look, just as Mr. Homan said, just as Secretary Noem has said, you have a right to protest in this country. You have a right to voice your First Amendment rights, but what you do not have a right to do is to harm law enforcement and harm other people in the way of that. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Well, according to Karen Bass, that's not happening. So
how do you feel about the level of support that you have received from the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor of California?
Well, Well, look, they just haven't shown up for the American people and, quite frankly, for their own constituents. And it's time for the Democratic Party to start showing up for the American people, the people that they represent. There was a mandate delivered to President Trump in this election to be able to deliver this for the American people, secure the border, enforce laws in the interior. And that's what we're doing at ICE every single day. That is what Secretary Noem has committed to the American people. And with the leadership of President Trump and his full support, the women of ICE know that they can go out into the community and keep the American people safe.
Well, speaking of safety, what about your officers, your agents? I mean, they are facing some real violence there in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They're facing violence in Los Angeles and all over the country. We've seen over a 400% increase of violence against ICE officers, against the men and women of ICE who put their lives on the line to protect the communities. They're going after their families, their friends, they're doxing them. They're doing everything they can to put our law enforcement officers in harm's way. And our officers continue to step forward, meet the line of duty, and be able to do the mission that the American people have sent them on.
We appreciate them for it, and we appreciate you for coming on today. Madison Sheehan is the deputy director.
So there you basically have it, guys. Okay. Now, one has to venture to guess that assuming the Republican Party does not, tear itself apart by 2026, I think the Democrats are going to face a devastating reality check when they find out this issue really does not poll well with American people like they think it does, right? They think, oh, we're a nation of immigrants. Surely, we're fear-mongering. We're saying some guy got sent to a gulag in El Salvador. This is really working for us, right? Well, the American people see through it. And the American people especially still remember what happened under Joe Biden. There's a reason why Donald Trump's top issue was immigration and polling, and that still continues to be the case, okay? So Democrats, I really have to say, keep on defending violent criminals, make that your political stance, and see where that gets you as a party in elections. It truly is astonishing. But anyways, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.